Hello, and welcome to Geo's add-on tutorials. The add-on we're going to be working with today is Pitbull, specifically Pitbull 4. And this is Module 1, which is titled, "Oh my god, there's so many new add-ons in my add-on list, what do I do?" So hopefully after going through this, you'll be able to make some intelligent selections on which ones to leave enabled and which ones to disable, and save yourself a little bit on memory. First thing you'll notice is that I'm doing this selection in-game as opposed to at the character selection screen. I use an add-on called ACP, or Add-on Control Panel, for that purpose. It lets me conveniently save sets of add-on configurations, but basically just do this at the character selection screen if you don't have this running, and that'll let you do the same thing. So without further ado, let's start going through these add-ons here. The main one, the top one here, Pitbull Unit Frames 4.0, you must leave enabled. So that was the kind of top level and enables all the rest of them. Aggro allows you to add coloring to the unit frames based on whether or not you have aggro or not, and also gives you some aggro alerts. I use other add-ons for managing aggro, for example Omen or Scatter or what have you. So in general I leave this one disabled, but per your preference you can enable it if you like. Pitbull Auras, this is for showing buffs and debuffs. If you use other add-ons for managing your buffs, either using the default Blizzard ones or something like Alcano's buff bars or Citrina buff frames or what have you, then you can disable this. I'm going to leave it enabled for now, just so you can see kind of what the in-game or the Pitbull Auras are like, and we'll go through Auras in another module more exhaustively. Pitbull Backgrounds, this allows you to have a background for your various unit frames. Blank space allows you to have blank space in the unit frame in between bars or on the right or the left. I'll get into more detail on this later. I'm going to leave it enabled for now. Borders, this allows you to highlight when hovering or targeting a particular unit frame. I'm going to leave it on for now, although I usually do disable this in the long term because I don't particularly like that function of it. Cast bar latency, this allows your cast bar to show a little red end to it that, based on your current latency, will estimate when you can safely begin casting a new spell. Some people like that a lot, some people don't. Per your preference, leave it on. I happen to like it, so I leave it on. Cast bar, if you do want any of your unit frames to show a cast bar or show what spell is being cast or anything like that, you'll want to leave this enabled. Combat faders, this is typically used by people who like minimalist UIs, where they want unit frames to disable or fade out when they're not currently in combat. So if you happen to like that particular kind of function, go ahead and enable it. I'm going to leave it disabled for now just to spare some confusion. Combat icon, I'm going to leave all of the icons enabled for now. It should be pretty obvious, especially once we get into the configuration, what these are. This one shows your current combat state, in or out of combat. Combat text, this shows text on your unit frame indicating the most recent hit to you or heal to you. If you use some other mechanism, whether it's the Blizzard default scrolling combat text or Parrot or MSBT or something like that, then you probably don't need this. I'm going to leave it enabled for now just so you can see what it looks like. Combo points should be obvious. For rogues, it's essential. I'm playing a rogue in this tutorial, so I'm going to leave it enabled. But I would also recommend leaving it enabled as well for any class, because there are other situations in game, especially centered around vehicles, where your spell effects appear as combo points on your target. So I would recommend leaving this enabled no matter what. Dog tag text, let me scroll down a little bit here. You'll see dog tag texts here and Lua texts here. One of these two modules should be enabled. If you are an add-on developer and are very used to Lua code already, then you can use the Lua text module. For pretty much anyone else, I would recommend leaving it at the dog tag texts. One of the two should be enabled. I wouldn't recommend enabling both unless you really have some advanced situation where you know you need one or the other or both of them. So I'm going to leave dog tag texts enabled for now and turn Lua texts off. Druid mana bar, this is only usable if you're a druid. It shows your current mana state even when you're not shape-shifted to a form that uses mana. So for example, kitty or bear form, where you have different kind of power, you can still have a bar that indicates how much mana you have as well. If you want that, enable it. I'm not on a druid right now, so I'm going to leave that off. Eclipse, new to, based on 401's addition of the Eclipse changes to druid moonkin casting, which shows the balance bar between whatever it is, moonfall, starfall, and wrath. So it shows where you currently are. You want this enabled if you're going to be playing a moonkin druid. Experience bar. If you want Pitbull bars to show your current experience gain and want to disable the blizzard ones, or don't use another add-on for that purpose, go ahead and enable this. I do use other add-ons for that purpose, so I'm going to turn that off. Happiness icon specific to hunters. Again, turn that on if you have a hunter and you want your pet's happiness to be displayed. Health bar, pretty much always want that on. Shows your current health. Hide blizzard frames. This allows you to hide various blizzard frames, whether it's specifically you, your target, party, raid frames, etc. This allows you to hide those based on what you're going to have Pitbull show instead. Highlighting when hovering or targeting. Again, I generally do not use this. I'm going to turn it off for now. I'll show you some of the highlighting functions when we get into the configuration. Holy power, this is specific to paladins and shows the so-called dangle that allows you to see how much holy power you currently have accumulated. Again, I'm not playing a pally, so I'm going to turn that off for now. Hostility fader, this one allows you to fade unit frames based on whether they are hostile to you or not. So for example, if you're targeting a vendor in-game that is friendly to you, that unit frame won't show, or maybe it will show depending on how you want it set. However, targeting a hostile, so either a mob that could attack you, basically something that has a red unit frame in-game, would then display or not. Again, typically used by people who like minimalist UIs. I'm going to leave it off for now, but I will show the fading interface once we get into config stuff. Leader icon, again, I'm going to leave all icons enabled. This is one that shows your current party or raid leader. Lua text, I went over before. Mana spark, this shows a spark on the cast bar that allows you to see how far in you are to your current 5-second rule. If you don't know what that is, turn it off. If you like that to be displayed, then leave that on. Master looter icon, again, another one of the indicators, which we'll get into later in more detail. This shows who in your raid is current master looter. Portraits, if you like seeing images, like the little display of the character's head or the monster's head that you're fighting, or even a full body portrait, you can enable this. I'm going to leave it enabled for now so we can see what it looks like. Typically when I'm done with making my UI, though, I do turn those off because it takes up kind of a lot of room and I don't really like to see them anyway. So again, personal preference, but I'll leave it on for now. Power bar, pretty much always want that on. PvP icon, again, another indicator, shows current PvP status. Quest icon, this is new as of 403, I believe, and when you have a mob targeted that is a mob that you need to kill based on your current quests, it will show a little exclamation point or an indicator on the frame that indicates that it's something that you're currently seeking for a quest, the quest that you're running. If you like to see that, leave that on. If you don't want that in your UI, turn that off. Again, I'm going to leave it on for now. Raid targets, so this is your typical moon and triangle and whatever icons that you can have on raid targets. If you raid, pretty much always want that one on. Range fader. This one, even for non-minimalist UIs, I do like to leave it on. This will allow you to fade a unit frame, so typically it would be used in a party frame or a raid frame. It will allow you to fade the particular target based on if they're out of range of your current casting. So for example, if you're a healer especially, and you want to know who's out of range, you can have Pitbull slightly or quite a bit fade the unit frame to indicate that they're out of range. Pretty good for, especially for healers. Ready check icon, pretty obvious. Again, it's another indicator, leaving that one on. Rep bar, if you want Pitbull to manage your reputation bar, then you can have that enabled. Again, I have other add-ons that do this. Or if you want to use the default Blizzard UI, then just disable this. Rest icon, again, obvious, another indicator indicating your current rest state, whether you're resting or not. roll icon, new, actually I don't know when this was added, pretty much when the Dungeon Finder came into active usage, indicates the current role that that person has selected, tank, DPS, or heal. Pretty good for especially for part of frames when you're running dailies or heroics or randoms or what have you. Ruins, this one's specific to Death Knights. I'm turning that off since I'm a rogue. Soul Shards, specific to Warlocks. Sounds, you can have Pitbull give you certain sound indicators. I have enough sounds that I'm worrying about in game and enough alerts coming from other add-ons that I generally do not turn Pitbull sounds on, but you can play with that if you like. Pitbull threat bar. Again, if you do want Pitbull to be your main indicator of who has threat and who doesn't, you can use Pitbull for that purpose, but I typically use another add-on like Omen or Skada for that, so I do not enable Pitbull's threat bar. Totems, specific to Chamois. You can turn that on if you're Chamois, obviously, or if you use another add-on for that purpose, then you can turn that off. Visual Heal is a module that allows you to see an estimate of how much your currently casting spell will heal on your target. This is especially good for healers, so you can get an idea of just how much your current heal spell is going to hit your target for. It does not take crits into account, so keep that in mind, but it is generally a pretty good visual indicator of how much your current heal is going to do and whether or not you need to follow up with additional healing or whatnot. You'll notice there's two of them. That will eventually go away. This is basically just because WoW is currently, because some of the countries like China lag behind in the version that they are running, one of these two will load, the other one will not, based on your current region. So leave them both active if you're going to use Visual Heal, and only one of the two will load. And finally, Pitbull voice icon. If you do use the in-game, which is to say Blizzard's in-game voice chat feature, then this will allow you to see when someone's keyed up or not. In general, though, most people are using Ventrilo or TeamSpeak or some other solution, as I do, so I typically will leave that off. But if you do use Blizzard's in-game chat, voice chat, then go ahead and leave that on so you can see when someone's keying up. And that does it. Hopefully you've been able to eliminate some or many of these to minimize the memory footprint that Pitbull will have. And once you've got the configuration comfortable, then go ahead and go into game, and we'll get to the next module, which is how to start configuring this stuff. Hopefully see you there. Thanks.